built between the lines. Here we are.
Here we are.
Right? There's many people in here already talking about, discipline, faith, leadership, resiliency, those things that we do behind the scenes, no lights on. That builds the unshakable character.
Yeah, the building blocks that no one really gets to see.
Yeah. So today is Tom, right? Some people, he's Pap, he's Dad, right? But to me, he's Pop.
Pops. It's a good name.
Yeah,
I like it. Yep.
Yeah, and I can't sit here and I can't really sit here and bring other people on, talk about how they got built in life, talk about their setbacks, how they've overcome that. I feel like it's I said in the other one before too, like, to whom much is given, much is required.
Mm-hmm.
And not bringing you on here because like you're the man who built me. So like you gotta come on so that we can talk about all of those things that I've gone through in my life, which we won't get into those details, but or maybe we will. I don't know. But you have been instrumental in my entire life, to keeping me, grounded and humble. And, just you are the reason from a man's perspective for me, you built me. Right. So I got to bring you on, because, you can tell maybe stories of how you had to break the wild stallion. I don't know,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. But, I think both of us had the same potter,
Yeah, 100%.
And he does the building.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of take it and move along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. It's kind of like a fireside chat without the campfire.
Yeah, we
right?
do have,
we do have
those.
So I mean, I appreciate that. I had a lot of good role models in my life too. I had some great uncles. Good mom. They were always what I would call the elders.
Mm-hmm.
Someone you can go to and talk to them. And we both know about those uncles. One, Uncle Lou, he was pretty much a foundation for a lot of stuff. And Uncle Nick, one thing I remember what he said to me one time, because when I was younger, it's like when we're younger, we go after it because we have to. Always feel like we have to fill our days with things and get things done. And I remember when I was younger and I felt like I was a little bit overwhelmed with it, Uncle Nick would say, you got too many irons in the fire. You need to take some out. And I'm like, well, you're the wise guy, the sage. How many do I take out? What do I do? He goes, you put them in there. I don't know, right? So these are the things that helped me grow over the years when I was getting after it, that I feel now I have the, what do you want to call it? It's not the blessing to hopefully be that person that they were for me, and watch you grow through all those things too. And to be able to be here and go, hey, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Right? Take some irons out of the fire.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Which ones? Huh?
Yeah, which ones?
Which ones? Yeah.
But I think, that's, and now as me as a dad, it's I don't want to say rinse and repeat, but it's taking everything as I'm slowing down, and I'm not saying, there's still a get after it side to it, but it's not that real quick, just, aggressive way of getting through something, so you learn that stuff, but it's then taking it and passing it on to the next generation, in your own children, in your own grandchildren, or, in somebody else's children, that the elders of the day, back in the day, that what they knew was what was right around them. There wasn't anything else that was impacting kind of them, because it was a small little pocket of, one town or one something else. and we're in an age now to where I think when life was simpler, so to speak, so I think for me, and again, I'll stop because, no matter what it is, like we as men, like we were not designed by our God to not talk to one another, right? We and maybe in my optic, because I was raised in the era of the, Rambos and the Commandos, right?
Right.
And then maybe the Clint Eastwoods, like it was like be the man's man, right? Be the superhero, be the you shouldn't talk about blah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was raised in that time period of the action figure, to where maybe I can't talk about my feelings here, like that's not what a man does, but we're not designed that way.
Well, and I think a lot of that too is an inherited trait, because some of us are very stoic,
Yeah.
And people would wonder, why aren't you saying anything? Well, I really don't have anything to say right now, but when I do,
Yeah.
okay. And so that, if anything, heredity passed that down to you. And I see it in my grandchildren now, especially my grandsons growing up, that, some of them just sit there and they're quiet. When I was growing up, people thought that the people that I knew, like in my friends, they thought that I was either stuck up or aloof. I remember being called those things, but I was more introverted. It was introspective of thinking about these things, and prepared us, I guess, for what we were going to go through in life later on, to be able to be introspective. And when you are that way, it gives you the opportunity to connect with the Lord and a higher power, to get the messages. Stand still, and be silent, and know that I'm God. So you take a couple minutes every day, even though you're busy, God's always there. So if you're busy and you got 5 minutes a time, a second at a time, whatever time you have, you come back and reconnect. And it helps you go on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, we, like you and I mean, every single morning there's a devotional that comes across, right? And I get that. It comes from Pastor Ron Moore at Bible Chapel, and then I can't remember his thing now. But anyway, like, shout out to you, Mr. Moore, Pastor Moore. Like, you do a great job with
they're
this.
awesome. They're great.
Living Grounded, I think, that's the name of it.
I think so.
It's 365 days a year. I should remember this thing, but it's
and
from
we
the
get
Bible
them every
Chapel,
day, right?
right? Yeah. But every day I sit down before the day starts, and I'm here with this. It might be 11 o'clock, depending upon what other fires are. Once my eyes open, but but I forward that on, right? And then there's dialogue that we have back and forth on all this. But through the devotionals and our communication on that, even from far away, like I'm not having a conversation. We're not on the telephone talking. We're not face to face.
Right.
We're using that medium to bring glorification to God. But through all of that in the study, because he drills down a lot into how my brain conceptualized the Bible, right? Because as humans, yes, you walk by faith, not by sight, and you have that connection in here, right, with the Holy Spirit. But then to go and take that on even further, like my brain gets stuff a little bit differently than maybe somebody else, right? I have to go down and I have to matriculate through, where was Jesus at this time, right? What was going on right here with David, and through those studies. And you said like 5 minutes, right? Like I've talked on this podcast about going somewhere quiet.
Yes.
Right. Wherever that is. If it's in your car, turn the radio off.
Absolutely.
Driving down the road. But, in reading that, like says Jesus goes to a deserted place, right? Well, the original Greek of that was eremos, right? Which just meant it wasn't the desert that he went to. It was a deserted place.
Yeah.
It was like the wilderness. It was a place of solitude, right? To get his thoughts and to get, what he needed to go
through.
And so just, find that spot, find that spot, like you said.
Yeah. And we never know how the Lord's going to talk to us,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's something that we actually acknowledge a word, if it's a feeling, if it's a thought, if it's a moment of peace, or, it's a shout,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think, if we take the time just to stop for a moment and do that, then he's always there ready to connect,
Mm-hmm.
And I see that happening in your life. I watch that, that you have those moments. Sharing those daily devotionals is an awesome way for us. I mean, there's a group of us, and as your aunt is part of that,
Mm-hmm.
she says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am.
Right.
So you can feel the presence in those moments. I have 3 devotionals. One is the Jesus Calling that works good. I have Rabbi Jonathan Kahn,
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Rabbi Kahn, and Ron Moore,
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to me how a lot of those are interconnected.
Oh, yeah.
The messages are similar,
Mm-hmm.
different yet similar, and speak to you at the same time.
Yeah.
And that gives you the I believe the energy, or whatever you want to call it, the wherewithal to get through the day.
Right.
I look back and I never try to get too far ahead of myself. In life,
Yeah.
or over the tips of your skis, whatever you want to call it. I always try to be humble, and ready to hear those things and be open to it. And again, I see that happening in you. I see it happening in the boys and in the girls, our grandchildren. And I've been fortunate. I've had a wonderful life. It's not over yet, but at 70 years old, I have the luxury, I guess if you want to call it, to slow down, to take the time, to enjoy those moments that maybe those who are younger haven't got there yet.
Right.
And of course, 7 years ago, my life came to a full stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all by the glory of God, I'm sitting here today.
Mm-hmm.
So if that doesn't humble you even more so, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's not really a but. During that time period, of seeing you in the hospital, and it's like there's that time period to where you just like life comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
From my perspective of that. In this, and then get after it, and this, and the go, and the go, and the go, and the go, and the go. That time period, and I know especially for you, was where you got stopped. You were stopped. It was there.
Dead stop.
Dead stop.
Yep.
But from my perspective on that, I was too. And I think because I think in your life you can go, you don't even know what kind of trajectory you're going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until things around you start to look foreign.
Yeah.
Right. And where you gotta just, if something's looking foreign to you in your life, then you gotta pump the brakes and stop and just take a screeching halt to nothing.
Yeah.
And really take that internal diagnostic check. What does this mean? Where are we going? How does this look now? And sometimes, like for you, like that, the Lord physically said, you're.
Yeah, he did.
And but through that as well too, coming out of the other side of that, for me, and seeing that for you, there was never a time in my adult life where I ever saw you in a vulnerable position. Right? And then what really matters in life is right there in front of you. Like what happens if? And as you spend a lot of time, if you spend a lot of time in your life afraid of the what if, then you're never ever living the hope and the promise that has been designed for you.
Absolutely.
So stopping at that moment in time in my life and saying, what if it was a scary time for everybody, for you especially, right? But for from those of us that are still here watching this, you have to, that was a moment in time to where it was, figure this out.
Yeah.
Not that was one moment, that was not that was the moment in my life to where it was like, the heavens opened up, and what, it was just, it was a real reminder as to what life is, what really matters in life.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I've got some sayings here that we can get into if we want to, but just for the audience's information, about 7 years ago, I was dead asleep. 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with a pop. It felt a pop in the middle of my back. So I get up, I go downstairs, and pretty soon I just hit the floor. I don't remember a whole lot of it. One thing I do remember, I cried out, and I'll take this to my last day on earth. I heard him say, "I'm here. I got you." And in the middle of the night, your mom heard me, which she was asleep too. Came down, went through the ambulance. By then, I was just flat out on the floor. I woke up in Allegheny General, and thanks to a talented and gifted doctor and his team, Dr. Alexander Yu, I'll never forget him, and the gifts. They did what they had to do. They did their magic. They did the gifts that God gave them. I woke up, I couldn't move anything from the neck down. Pretty much once you get conscious again, you think, well, this is it, man. It's over, right? I'm out. And I know you all never told me how bad it really was. I kind of guessed from how bad it really was. But what carried me through was hearing that, I'm here. I got you. And I had to turn it over. So for men like us, it's hard to do that because we were taught and we were trained, you're the tough guy.
Yeah.
You got to you got to stand up. And for me personally, to have my family see me in a position that there was nothing I could do about it, but go with it, And, it's kind of an interesting journey, right? The surgeries, a couple surgeries, some good rehab. The people in the rehab were great. I learned how to walk again, learned how to use my hands, which was an interesting thing too, right? When you watch watching young kids learn how to walk and how they kind of bobble back and forth, I had to do that. And it's like, what's going on here, man? I'm like, I got to learn to do this all over again.
Yeah.
I had to learn to use my hands when they made me do this occupational therapy stuff. To do one thing was 40 seconds with this hand, was 4 minutes and 40 seconds with this one. And I'm like, is that ever going to get better?
Yeah.
I'm here. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we went through a couple surgeries and, the rest of the story, and here I am. Right. I'm thankful that I got to hang around a little bit longer, see some grandkids born and watch them grow. And, again, when you have right now at my time in life, I'm blessed, but my body I've learned to live with my body telling me that's about as far as you get to go today, and it's humbling.
Yeah.
You think you're humbled all your life, but that's even more humbling. And even more perspective of realizing that there's a higher power and he's always watching out for us, and he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, we as humans, in my opinion, we get those signs a lot.
Yeah.
There's a signal that comes. Don't ignore it.
No.
Don't ignore it. It's just could be a feeling that you have. right? Like I said, like the heavens aren't opening up and there's not a big trumpet for me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that I want to hear that, because that means something else at this point
Something
in time.
else
I don't
is
want to
going
hear the
on, right?
trumpet. Yeah, don't give me the trumpets
Really,
right now.
really, yeah.
But like there's something in that, because we're all given those signs in those situations to where it's like now it's time to turn back. You know, that you're there, and again, you know, I'm here, and you hearing that I'm here, you still had to go do, right?
Sure.
Like prayer doesn't take the place of laziness, right?
Absolutely.
I think T.D. Jakes said that.
Yeah, T.D. Jakes said that.
Right? You can't pray and then go take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Pray and you got to go do. You know, but like that moment in time, you know, is for you, but and then seeing you go through that, what you had to do to get back to some kind of level of normalcy, you know, was a journey that I just watched. You know, but you had to go do it. You couldn't just roll over. So many people, I think, you know, get that moment to where they can and then realize it, but then maybe they're not taking advantage of the opportunity because they just pray and then roll over and take a nap.
But and you have to park your hubris or modesty or whatever you want to call it at the door, because for me it was like, I can't be selfish about this. You know, I'm down and out. I was down and out. I felt down and out, but there was a reason to get up. You know, I had a family. I had time that I was wanting to spend, more time to spend with him, and God gave me that. Okay. And a lot of times, you know, it's not like you get the trumpets. Sometimes it comes in the shape of another person. You know, I can remember lying there at night, and not to belabor the subject, but lying there at night, my back was sore. I wasn't allowed to move. You know, my bones were all hurt, and my back was opened, right? And I'm feeling sorry for myself. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, well, look, Jesus' back was laid open. And I think Isaiah said it, I can count all my bones. Why am I sitting here being selfish about this? And at that moment, a little kindly nurse's aide, I can't even remember what her position was, came in, held me by my hand in the middle of the night and saying to me, there's a guardian angel for you. And then she was my guardian angel at night. You all coming to visit me are my guardian angels. Mom was my guardian angel through the day. Yeah. You know, and I watch myself now, folks. I try not to get up on the ladder when she's watching me, you know, just because I don't want to put her through when she's watching me, right? You know, I try not to do these things, you know, and it makes you a little bit more aware. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I've got a little thing I want to share. Sure. If I may. You know, I trained, like I said, I've had a fortunate life. I trained with a man years ago, Master Littlejohn, Taekwondo, helped me a lot because I was an angry kid growing up. Yeah. And I don't know why. I think it was I say a Scotch-Irish fuse attached to an Italian hand grenade. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
That's
could
pretty
be
accurate.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I see that throughout the generational thing too, you know. Yeah. And I'm not sure where this came from, but, you know, it says, I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give an account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So when those times come to you, you know, I don't look at it like trying to seek out those minutes from learning in my life and watching you all grow up. You know, those minutes are here. How do we use them? You know, I mean, we use them to sit and talk. Yeah. If you're not talking, you're just sitting there enjoying the silence and the quiet, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Too, you know, because you never know, like you said, when that minute's going to hit you. Be there.
Yeah.
Just be in the minute.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't have to be greater than that.
No, it doesn't have to. I mean, I think I said that maybe Sam was on here when we were talking about that.
Uh-huh.
You know, my perspective of the life and what I work on for myself was that we're so apt as people now to replace now for next.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're taking away that minute, you're trading right now in for next.
Yes.
Right. So you're thinking about what's next and what's next, and you're taking away from the beauty of now.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just going to spend your entire life always trading now for next. You know, and if you're fortunate enough to have that moment in your life to where it's that, wow, that aha,
yeah,
or something like then you have to remain focused on that now and never trade it for next.
Yeah.
You know, and even if you haven't gone through anything, right? If you're tired or you're running around or your kids are this or your husband's that or your wife, whatever it is, like you gotta go, who is that me? Am I the reason why? Like, am I trading this now for next?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's huge in that because we only have that. We all have the same time period. I said that I don't know how many times on here, right? 168 hours in a week. That's it. That's all, right? That's all we have. What are you going to do with it?
And you never know. I mean, I watched the segment you had with the coach.
Coach Chris?
Coach Chris.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome segment. Awesome man. Awesome segment. And I watched that, and he's like, you never know in that moment if it's your turn to influence or if it's someone else's turn to influence you.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, I've worked with a lot of youth in the past, you know, it was part of giving back to the community or you know, coaching and I coached 2 guys in Little League and coached some shooting sports, you know, to keep kids safe. And you never know for that moment.
Right.
You know? So it's either mainly, it may not be your moment. It might be somebody else's moment.
Yeah.
And if you're there, even if you're just there, how much of a difference does it make? You never know what kind of difference you make in somebody's life ever until maybe 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, or it could be instantaneously. Hey, I remember when you, Coach. I remember when you, Tom.
We may spend our entire lives never knowing.
Never knowing.
We may spend our entire lives never knowing if you had a positive impact.
That's true.
Until you get to the gates. Never know.
Yeah.
You never know. You know, and I think that's what stops a lot of people from doing the right thing, because we're an instant gratification society.
Yes.
And human beings are already that instant gratification.
Yes.
Right. I'm giving this to you. I need to know that I need that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of this journey here, you know, and bringing everybody on it. Like everybody is saying the same things we're saying. Either we have found the 12 most perfect guest or 14 or 16 most perfect guest talk, or it's just there's something to this, right?
Yeah.
There's something to this, what we're saying right here.
Yeah. You know, I think it's important that I lost my train of thought for a second there. And that's what happens at 70 years old. You know, I used to be more articulate too, but, oh shoot, it'll come back.
All right.
Anyway, maybe it's this, and I brought this along too, just because I need sometimes to go back and look at this. I think you, in a moment, you see. I'm sorry, folks. In a moment, you may not have to be as great in that moment as you think you have to be. You know, because we put that pressure on ourselves. Here's my moment. I got to be great, for whatever reasons. You know, am I looking for someone to pat me on the back, and I always figured I never have to be better than the man that I was yesterday. And I always need to give at least 100%. Now, some days you're 100%, is only 50% of how you felt the day before, but at least show up. Give your 100%. And I think that's what those moments are. You may not need, it may not be about you. It might be about the other person, or it may be about something that's totally unrelated to what's going on. And I worked with a fella, back in the 70s when I was right out of high school and right when I was in my first couple of years of college. And was a great man, an older fella. They always had the wisdom, these older guys, right? And he handed me this piece of paper one time, because after I was done working with him, he goes, I want you to carry this with you. And the original one got all bent up, all worn out. So it's called The Man in the Glass. And I don't know if you've heard about this one or not, but it said, The Man in the Glass. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. And I think you were talking about this too. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he is with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. And, like I said, I only have to be better. And that's how I felt. I only have to be better than I was yesterday, right? Don't look for the accolades on it. I mean, they'll come. If they're meant to come, they'll come, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We may never know.
We may never know.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Because you mentioned this, you're, in the 70s, right? I mean, you were a young pup then. I mean,
I was a pup.
You were a young pup.
Yeah,
it wasn't like,
we needed some elderly direction, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, I'm not, I'm not, I still think I'm, 25, but I'm not.
In here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm not.
I know, I'm not.
So maybe I'm the elder now. That's what it is. Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm the elder.
Yeah.
So, but, so you, in 2019, but you were already retired for like 9 years at that point.
Yeah, I was.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the 70s, you were kicking off the career,
Yeah.
and then you had me, and then another one, and then another. So it sent you in a different trajectory of life. But through all of that, though, I mean, I know that you've met a lot of great people, like in your leadership.
Yeah.
People who are in your charge. I mean, I know one of them, but I think, did you, all of this stuff that you just read to me now, and you're talking about the elders, there was a lot of times where you had people that you were impacting without even knowing, right? Yeah, they were in your charge, right? You were their, state conservationist.
Yeah.
You never know what impact you're going to have. Yeah, they're here, they're in your charge. They also want a paycheck. That's great. But I think in that leadership side of it, you've always been that leading by example. And I've seen that even when I was blessed, like fortunate enough to come down and, play golf on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky, and seeing the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Like it was you've made an impact on those people's lives, but now, like, what advice do you think would you give to like somebody who's starting out now? And I don't know if they even have, the position that you started out at, but how would you, I think part of this is like, what's something that somebody could take away as a young man, a young leader right now who has, who has 3 children, right? All before maybe the age of 27, trying to figure out life, trying to figure out where they're going, trying to pay the bills, try to put food on the table, try to, like what would you, because it's happening now to somebody,
Well, I have the luxury of retrospect.
Yeah.
Looking back and seeing those times when you're living in the moment, it's like you're basically just trying to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
There's no instructions, there's no rule books. So my advice to anybody starting out, and I believe that leadership can't be taught.
Mm-hmm.
You can give people leadership skills, you can teach leadership skills, but I always felt that leadership was an innate thing. It's either in there or it's not in there. And to be ready, if you feel that way, to be ready for when your turn comes. And it may not be your turn for a while. It wasn't my turn for a long time. It's not everybody's turn for a long time, but you can pick out the people who have those abilities, and you have to nurture them.
Mm-hmm.
Even we talk about young folks. Some of the toughest things I've ever seen in some coaches is that you can make or break a kid's spirit, boom, in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can nurture that spirit in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And with leadership, my looking back at young people, I guess some advice that I would give them, advice that I gave to people when I was in that position. Look, you're going to make mistakes. Hey, man, I made a lot. We all do. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
Fess up to that mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. It's what you do tomorrow that defines you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You learn from that mistake. You move on to the next thing you have to do. You give glory to God due his name, right? Like, hey, Lord, I made a mistake. Help me through the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you can go to someone who's even a sage that's one-to-one person you trust, what do I need to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of times they won't give you that advice. They'll just say, hey, man, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Move on. Don't repeat the same mistake,
right.
because then it becomes a habit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I had to offer that, I would say, get up every morning, give your 100%. Even if it's only 50, it's 100% for you.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's always going to see that. And when it comes time to pick you for a leadership program, if it comes time for you to realize to move into that, then you'll know.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? And I watched that with you.
Yeah.
I watched that in some of the grandkids now.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that are going to move into that.
Right.
Some are unwilling.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really sure yet, But when they are, we need to be here to foster that for them,
Mm-hmm.
Nurture that
Mm-hmm.
for them. And when you have the time in, I guess if you want to call it, right, to give that time back just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Be there to nurture it.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what they have to say. And maybe if they make a mistake, it's like, hey, all right, look, you did.
Yeah.
You got to own it,
Yeah.
right? Own it. That's what
Right.
happens. I think that's what's wrong with some of society today. We don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you make me do that? I didn't make you do anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
Own it.
Yeah. It's a lack of accountability thing
Yeah.
that takes place
Yeah, own it.
in many, many sectors of life.
Yeah.
Not just business. It could be in church.
Hey,
Anywhere on the planet.
anywhere.
There's a certain level of lack of accountability
Sure.
that takes place now.
Yeah.
The person you have to want to do that. You have to want to take accountability for your actions
Yeah.
and do the right thing.
Or have someone in a position to hold you accountable.
And trust that process.
Trust that process. That's right.
Right.
Yep. Own up
Yeah.
to it. Fess up
Mhm.
to it, man.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, I have that conversation with the young kids that I coach, right? Even my own sons or anybody else's son. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I say the same thing. You're not defined by the mistakes you made. It's what you do after that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a saying, and all through. If you talk to any of the 100 kids that I've coached, it's now what, right? Okay, you missed a tackle. Now what?
Now what?
Right? It's
Yeah.
not so what.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so what. It's now what.
Mm-hmm.
So get over yourself right now. And now it's now what. Okay, I missed that, or okay, I missed my assignment, or okay, I got in trouble with the principal at school. Because we're not just coaching X's and O's here. Like, we're coaching, like, this is how to be like a good, decent man at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it's now what? That's a big saying that we have. Give them a little bit of time to process that, and now what? Now what are you going to do?
Now what are you going to do? Yep.
And it's cool to see kids pick up on that, because I still have some, still have kids that have graduated that I coach in football, right? They're still coming up, It's like, well, for me, I'm blessed because I get to see that in somebody else. I have the perspective because I can see that return from these children who are, just graduated high school. So this isn't some like, diatribe on theology or listening to like reading a book and spitting it back out to you guys like this. I'm seeing that real life somebody's always watching you.
That's right.
And for you to give back, because again, to whom much is given, much is required. You may never see that return, but it's happening.
Yeah, I remember Uncle Lou saying that to me one time. He goes, Tommy, he says, someone's always watching you. And they're either watching you for good reasons or they're watching you for bad reasons, right?
Yeah.
And you hope that the people who are there to nurture you through are watching you for good reasons. And that you must be accountable to show that person that I'm worthy. I'm here. Yeah. I messed up, but I'm willing to accept it. If I could digress for a minute, and we're good on time.
Oh, it's
okay.
All night long.
I think that's one of the things in today. If I may just go to there for a minute, in today's society, we're not willing to hold people to that accountability. We're not willing to teach that. Okay, I talk a little bit about the shooting sports. And when you hear in society today, you heard bad things. Kids and guns are bad. Kids shouldn't own guns. Kids shouldn't do that. Like, I'm a firm Second Amendment. Okay. Not everyone should own a gun. Now I'll probably get some feedback on that, but I'm thinking not everybody should do that.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, don't do it. All right? And if it is for you, go learn how to do it and do it right. And what we used to teach in these kids was, you're holding something now that it has a bullet in it. You need to know how to do that. You need to know when to do that. You need to know why, and you need to know where that's going to go. Because and I always tell them, I say, well, let me break it down to you. Words are like weapons. You say something to somebody, and it's out there. You can't take that back. You don't know what harm you've caused because that's not an instantaneous thing. You point that gun in the wrong direction and you pull the trigger, you can't take that back. And you may have consequences down the road that you can't recover from. So my job wasn't to teach them how to shoot. My job was to teach them how to be responsible and be safe. And I think that would apply across the board in sports, in life. My job's as your coach, my job as an elder, my job as a grandfather, a dad, to teach you how to be responsible, teach you to be safe, go out there and do stuff, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. And if you make a mistake, okay.
Yep.
Like you said, what are you going to, now what?
Now what?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I saw that on like a church. What are those things called? Like a placard? Not what they put the letters on the thing.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
sign,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I saw that driving through a neighborhood one day to a closing, and it was like there's the two things you can't get back, right? It's the word after you say it and the stone after you throw it.
Yeah.
And I'm having a bad I was probably late for something. I probably had too many irons in the fire.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at a red light, and I look over, I'm like, this, I'm reading this sign, and I'm like, I don't know. I went to like this, I don't know what happened after that. I just know someone was honking at me because the light was green and I wasn't, but that stuck with me for a long time. Well, this was probably 12, 14 years ago. I saw this. So
Wow.
that to me was like, okay, if first of all, I'm in charge of myself. There is nobody in charge of me. Like, I'm in charge of myself. What I say, what I eat, what I watch, what I hear, what I read, whoever the people I want to be around, I'm in charge of that. Yeah. I'm in charge of how I react to that. So okay, I'm in charge of myself. No one's going to hold me more accountable to me than I will.
Yeah.
Well, but now I have this other greater responsibility, and that's to the people in my charge, right? The wonderful people at Avenue to Close, right? My children, right? Friends' children, kids I get to coach, right? The just the lady I might see pumping gas,
Yeah.
It's like there's something there if you can see that, like, oh, how are you doing today, right? Just it's not anymore what's here in front of your face, right? You look out there. There's people who need to hear, how are you doing today? And there's an accountability section that you have to, as people. It's not about you anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in coaching. We had a group of kids that were like, they were just all about themselves, and you just write on the board, here's the surprise today. Here's the whiteboard. Here's the plays. I wipe the whole thing and I write on there in big letters, it is not about you.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a talent problem on this team. We have a person problem on this team. It changed them, it morphed them, but that's everywhere that you go all the time, for the most part. But there's small little. The unfortunate side about this is that there's what people see are constantly seeing and hearing, right? If you watch any network on TV, you're going to think the world has already ended. It's over. It's over for all of us.
Yeah.
Right? Why even go on anymore?
Yeah.
Right? We're bombing here. We're there. This person's doing this. This is happening over here. If that's all you're gonna see every single day, and fill your brain from just that one thing, you're gonna be in a spot like, I don't want to be around you, because you got one thing on the mind, and it's fear that's controlling you. That's not a good spot to be in. There's so much more out there. So many pockets like this. The 4 people sitting in this room right now. We're still. And there's more of that out there, wanting to figure out how to make the world a better place than the opposite. There's more people wanting to make the world a better place than not right now.
Yeah. And, in that light, I think it goes back to what they called the golden rule, or even Jesus said it, and I'm not sure where he said it, but, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that makes us we're not only accountable to a higher power, we're accountable to each other as people. Right. And, I think that one thing I learned from training in the martial arts, when Master Littlejohn would ask you, how you doing today? You were good. He goes, no. How you doing today? I'm great. And I think if someone asks you that, and because we may have a tendency to go, how you doing today? Oh man, Jesus stinks.
Right.
Today is.
You really want to know?
I really want to know. If you go, I'm great, and they go, really, are you great? Yeah, I want to start out great, because if it's not going my way, then I can go to good. If I start out bad, I have nowhere to go, unless I decide to shift gear, to worse, or what's after worse.
Right.
So start out great. Smiles are infectious, man. And we found out from people, Look at the people. Sometimes you're standing in line and you give them a smile, and all of a sudden they're talking to you about something. Yeah. Or if you're standing in line and they've got a pretty cool shirt on, right? Or they got a nice hat on, or man, that's a really cool hat.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you about their hat. Yeah. And even a kid, if you sit down with a kid and you go, hey, what do you got going on here? Sometimes if you give them a minute, they'll tell you about it.
It's everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched that, through my life now, You know, I watched you guys growing up. You know, I watched you and your sisters grow up. You know, I was fortunate enough to really in life to meet and marry my best friend. She was my best friend starting out, you know, and we were in love with each other, but she was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
She's my best friend today. You know, I watched us grow together like that. And, you know, through the ups and downs, you always had to stay great. You had to have a smile, never go to bed mad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that only makes two people mad.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that deals with not just in the personal relationship, but the relationship we have with other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you've told me sometimes you're in line and I'll have a blessed day. And then pretty soon that person opens up
Mm-hmm.
and now they're having a blessed day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're having a great day.
Yeah. It doesn't take very much.
Oh.
And it doesn't have to be. But it's got to be something that's, you know, we don't want any of those banal platitudes. We want the honest, like, hey,
be real.
Because if you wake up in a sense and having a grateful heart, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't. Maybe you're miserable this morning when you get up. You just actively keep approaching that, because coming from a place with a heart of gratitude steers your entire day.
Sure does.
Steers your entire day.
A thankful heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Makes joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the coach said that too. You got to be real.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? Because people can really, you may not think so, but people can read through
Authenticity.
Oh, yeah, boy.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And especially kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kids know if you're real or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sure do.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
sure
dogs.
do. And dogs. Yeah.
know too.
Yeah. And dogs.
Yeah.
That's right.
My dog doesn't like you. You're not coming into my house.
Yeah,
My dog
really.
doesn't like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for dogs, huh?
Hey, there it is.
Yeah, boy. There it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope there's dogs in heaven.
Oh, 100%
Yeah.
there is. I feel
really
that
do.
way anyway.
Yeah. Hang
Yeah.
out with them.
Megan, shake yes, no.
I've had conversations with multiple pastors about this.
Yeah.
And the answer is?
Varied.
Buried.
Well, let's bring them
We'll
on.
know one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will know one day. Hey, there was a segment once on one of the Twilight Zones about that. There was a guy who he was out coon hunting with his dog, and somewhere through the night he died, and his dog did too, right? So he's waking up and he thinks he's still alive, and he's hunting with his dog, and he goes through all these different scenes, right? And he gets to this place, and they're going, "Hey, brother, we've been waiting for you," you know. And he goes, "Oh, cool." He says, "Can my dog's coming in." He goes, "Oh, we don't take dogs here." And you can see the dog. He's like looking at this guy, and he goes, "Well, I ain't coming in then. If you're not going to take dogs." So he goes down the road a little further, and there's a guy sitting there, and he goes, "Hey, we've been waiting for you, and we've been waiting for your dog." And he said, "You all take dogs here?" He goes, "Yeah, this is heaven." He goes, "Well, the guy down the road," he goes, "You don't want to go there." And the dog knew, man.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
Here's heaven.
Yeah.
Let's go in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Twilight Zone was out there
I'm
for
telling
the
you, it
most
was
part.
way out
But
there.
that's
Yeah.
I like that. I like that one.
Yeah.
But whew.
Well, there was some stuff. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know, but still. Yeah. I mean, you and I always like to throw out the one-liners from some of the movies we see, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's
I mean,
always-
one-liners. I mean, it makes America.
Yeah. Nothing like a
I
good
don't
quote
know. Maybe
sometimes.
Maybe not. But
Oh.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and everybody does that. Quotes their favorite movie.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. It's good that they have good quotes in movies sometimes,
Yeah.
because sometimes the rest of the stuff isn't,
Mhm.
you know, up to par.
Yeah, because like I said, I grew up in the Rocky era.
Yeah.
You know, like that was my favorite movie.
Yeah.
I
Nobody
wasn't even
does
born when
Stallone as good as you anyway.
well, you know, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
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 But that's yeah, I can do a pretty mean.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but
really
it's what
good
I grew up. I mean,
Sure.
you know, I didn't know that the voice would sound like this as I was this age, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, those movies, I mean, that was like the building of America.
Sure.
You know, I
Yeah.
wasn't born, I wasn't alive when the first one came out, you know, but you better be sure by the age of the second one, I'm watching that puppy.
Sure.
I'm 5 years old probably at
Yeah.
that point.
Well, he had a lot of good life lessons in there too.
Yeah.
He really did. Yeah. Same like a good Western. Nothing like a good Western.
Yeah, there's a lot of messages in there too.
Yeah, a lot of messages.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
to go back to that point, so yes, anybody who wants to refute any pastor out there, there are dogs in heaven.
Okay.
I'm done.
Yeah.
It changed my mind.
Change my mind.
You can come on for 4 hours and change my mind. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your opinion? Yes?
I would like to hope and pray that there are dogs in heaven because of the experiences I've had with them here, but I won't know. And either or, that's not the goal, and we won't be sad or happy either way because the goal is Jesus. So.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're there, and hopefully when we get there, it'll be like, welcome home, good and faithful servant. You
Exactly.
did good, right?
That's what it is.
Yeah, you did good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But every day of your life, you have that choice.
Yeah. Can I bring my dog, though?
You can bring your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could go on and on and on. Yeah.
I mean, there's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, I want to hear the 9/11 story. I want people to hear that 9/11 story.
The 9/11 story.
Okay, because from I'm in college,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody has that, and I don't know. I mean, Cole, like you were probably like 2 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 2 years old when
Okay.
9/11 happened. Right, Megan was a little bit older.
Yeah.
than 2, not much. Because we all have that story, like anybody between this age and this age.
Yeah.
And I want to hear from the standpoint because it's really not about the details of the day for you, right? You're a couple mile and a half maybe from the Pentagon.
We could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but from the standpoint of the leadership side of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you were there
Yes.
for a leadership conference, I
For a
believe it was.
leadership
Right?
conference.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And how to
Yeah.
deal with calamities and how to deal with adversity and how to deal.
Truly.
So everybody in the room is getting pumped up with what to do in the event that
Mhm.
you're faced with a setback.
Yeah, that day we saw the best of human behavior and the worst of human behavior, I guess I would say, and a lot of the best. But from a leadership standpoint, I mean, we're there. The guy that's instructing in class comes in and he goes, planes ran into the towers in New York. They're falling down. Class is canceled. Have a nice day. So, there's 30 of us in the class. Happen to be good friends with 2 of the guys in that class. I go, well, I'm going to go look at the TV and see if this is true, if this is just a test in the class, right? So I go down, I see, yeah, okay, this is going on. My buddy Jeff goes out, and he sees the smoke coming up from the Pentagon. We hear that there's another plane, maybe headed back to the Capitol. We were 1 block from the Capitol, right? So we go back to class is canceled. We head back to our hotel rooms, and to our respective hotel rooms by ourselves. I kneel down, I pray. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here today, right? And I got the word: pack your stuff and go home. Right as I'm done with this, the phone rings. It's Jeff, my brother Jeff. He says, what are you doing? I says, well, I just got done praying. He says, yeah, what did you get? I said, pack your stuff and go home. He goes, come up here. I got my stuff packed. We're going home. And so the third guy that was with us was also from Ohio, and we're in the room sitting there. Of course, we're having a little bourbon, right? Because it was a day to have some. And he walks in and goes, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're packed. We're going home. And he goes, I got my stuff. I'll come down. So we go down to the main hall where all the group is. And this is nothing against anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody makes their own choices that you live with or you don't live with. So we go down there to the room, and they're all standing there around talking over, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Jeff and I walk. The one guy, Barry, he takes care of all the clothes, and he's sending everything back so we don't have to carry this. we pack everything up in something that we could carry for the day and go to the group. Hey, we're leaving. Anybody who wants to come with us, get your stuff. We're going to mail all this stuff to your respective states and homes, and we're leaving. Well, we can't leave. Well, who says? I mean, there's no more class, right? And so to make the long story short, Jeff said to me one time, when it comes to people actually doing something, you can maybe count on 10%. 10% is the amount of people that will take a stand for whatever reasons at certain time and a place, like we were talking. And out of that class of 30, 3 people left that day. All right. Did we get good and bad reviews on that? Yeah. But that was a decision that we made because we got the word, and we guaranteed everybody's safety. I will make sure I'll get you back in Ohio tonight. You know, you can stay at my house for as long as you want. Jeff's like, you can stay at my house. You can stay, you know, Barry's, you can stay at my house. And, you know, not to go into all the other details and in the weeds, that's the day that I looked around and I went, wow, 10%. And you hope that 10% has your altruistic,
Sure,
good-natured stuff to you. Because some people who take a stand someday are doing it for whatever reasons they are, you know. But that really, really hit home to me of what it is to be in a leadership role. And maybe that's the time that I made my shift. That like, okay, I can do this. You know, now's the time. And I think in our youth and in the people that we nurture bringing up, you got to look for that 10%. You don't ignore the other part, because there might be somebody out there who's a late bloomer or something, but you take that 10% and you nurture them, because they'll take the other percentage and bring them on too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Multiplying factor. Right.
Yeah.
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 But I found that interesting, like even you know, retrospectively for me, because now being in leadership and going and having talks in front of big groups about leadership, and even my own journey, you know, in coaching in my group, like, you know, it's amazing how that's kind of like nothing has ever really changed about human nature very much.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, that story and hearing about that, I mean, you know, there's a positive and a plus and minus out of all of that, you know, because I mean, after that, and you got out of there by renting a van with somebody who was willing to drive you somewhere,
yeah,
you know, back to where you were. Looking back, those guys, those people, and could not get out for a week or longer by airplane.
Longer. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, there were no airplanes out.
No, and I think, you know, not it's not your fault. You were 2 years old. You weren't. You know what I mean? But like that time period in our history of America was, you know, we say like World War II was the greatest generation, because it was the whole country coming together, right? Rationing food, what having those guys come, right? It was like, that was the greatest generation. Of that 9/11 generation was pretty close to that generation of World War II.
Yeah.
You know, with guys then just enlisting to go fight. Like we had a time period in 2001 to where like that was the next great generation to come through all of it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfortunate because, like, again, it's in my memory, you know, but we've gotten so far away from how we came together that quickly 25 years ago. Because that's 25 years anniversary coming up, right?
Yeah.
2001.
2001.
Yeah. So we're 25 years coming up now in September that to me, I think what I want to say is like we were there on that cusp of becoming the other next generation to come through. I don't know what happened to, like, because that would be like that would be my group of people
Yeah.
at that point in time, but again, it still always remains the same to that level of accountability that you have as a human being.
True. And it ties in with most of the things that we've talked about today. You don't know when you're going to get that call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the call comes and you need to make now a conscious decision. Do I step into this or do I not?
Right.
And that's your decision to make. Right. So I don't hold anything against the people who said, no, man, I want to stay here. Got to do that. That's good. That was a decision that they made. Mm-hmm. A decision that we made was, I'm going home. I don't know what's going to happen here. All right. I'm not scared. All right. I don't know what's going to happen here. Mm-hmm. So there's an air of uncertainty. And I know that by the grace of God, I'm going to get home. Mm-hmm. And I prayed over it. I'm going to get home. I'm going to make it. And there were 3 of us. I say, well, if one guy decided to want to go, maybe you're on your own, mm-hmm. right? But when you have a couple of you that make that decision, because you got the call, mm-hmm. and it's like anything in life, it was just a moment in time for you to have a call and make a decision to go do what you got to do, one way or the other, and then you own it, right? You own it.
Yeah.
And it was really wild how it worked out. We couldn't find a ride nowhere. The one guy was getting ready to hotwire a car. We were going to take a car. We didn't care where we were. We tried to buy
That's
a car.
That's how crazy it was, though.
Well, it was crazy.
The pandemonium everywhere.
Mass exodus of people and such. Like, we saw the best of human behavior and the worst. We ran into a guy that we knew he had a van rented. We wanted to work with him, and we would not want to hear it. Didn't want to hear it. I'm all set up.
Yeah.
And we just happened to stop to go get something to eat. And a lady overheard us. She was worked in the Pentagon. She goes, I'm sorry I overheard your conversation, but my husband has been out of work. He's a truck driver, been out of work for months. She says, he'll drive you home if you want. And we're like, well, we can't rent a van for less than, they wanted an astronomical amount. And she goes, just wait here. I'll make a phone call. And I'm going to talk about guardian angels and what they look like, And here comes this guy in there, and he's looking at us. We're looking at him, and he's like, he was a truck driver, right? He goes, "You guys want to ride with me?" And we laughed at him. We said, "You want to ride with us?" He goes, "Van's outside. Let's get in and let's go."
Yeah.
Drove us all the way from Washington D.C. to our back door.
Yeah.
Right. And we made a decision to give him something for his time. And first he didn't want to take it, but he was out of work. You think we would have offered this guy like $1 million for moving us? Just broke out in tears. We're like, no, man, you saved us. You were here, a moment in time. You were here. You stepped into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he drove all the way back home that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was something to see.
Yeah.
Really was.
The stories are amazing of the best of people.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. You don't need to seek it. It's just right there. Find it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's right there in front of you.
You never know what the moment's going to bring you.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's not done. I mean, the best is yet to come. That's how
sure.
I say that. I'll keep saying that.
Yeah.
Because I come from a heart of gratitude in all things.
Yeah.
Right, good or bad. That's what I focus on daily. Is if I'm getting pruned.
Yeah.
Then there's greater fruit coming out of that. That's really truly how I feel.
We have to have that hope. We have to have that faith. Because faith keeps you going when there's not much hope.
Mm-hmm. That's all there is.
Keeps you going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Get up and get it.
I'm I can't even begin to say how awesome it is to have you on this. You know, from the guy that's paramount building this. You know, the reason for that all the time. You know, and I'm blessed because, you know, not only a great dad, but my best friend, and that's how it always is. And I think for anybody, you know, I hope the same for everybody. I hope the same for everybody. If you don't, and you can have that, make amends. Make amends.
I'm honored by it, you know, and God, I look at it this way: God put me here to be the caretaker.
Yeah.
You know, y'all are mine by birth, but y'all aren't mine.
Yeah.
We all belong to a higher Father.
Just a steward.
Just a steward.
That's it.
Only here for a short time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Pop.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Love you.
Ti amo.
Thank you.